So this week, I'm so excited. We have Miss USA 2013, Erin Brady Colagiovanni. She was the first contestant to win Miss USA from Connecticut, and she's now a financial analyst and model. So welcome, Erin.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on. So how old were you when you first started pageants? What made you want to start competing?
Yes, so my first I would say in the Miss USA stint, it was 24 years old. And so I competed for the first time at 24, kind of after doing a little bit of research. So I had worked with a girl whose sister had competed in the Miss USA line and had said, have you ever thought about doing pageants before? And I was like, well, I've watched them, but I really wasn't educated as far as the differences between like Miss America and the Miss USA group. So after a little bit of research, I was like, that kind of sounds fun. So I went out and competed at Miss Connecticut USA and fell first runner up, to go back the second year and say, well, I'm either going to win, hopefully, or if not, then it just wasn't for me. This isn't the journey for me. And so I did end up winning, and I was 25 at the time. But yeah, crazy.
That's
crazy.
Awesome. I'm sure you were glad that you took that second chance. And
yeah, because things come up in life, right? And you're kind of like, I don't know if I want to go back. And again, some women compete 6-7 years to just like hopefully win their state title. So I know just like having that in the back of your mind can sometimes play a part in the anxiety of having to go back and do it all over again.
Right. And what did you advocate for during your time as Miss USA?
Yeah, so with the Miss USA brand at the time, they advocate for breast cancer and ovarian awareness and education. So that was something I didn't have near and dear to my heart at the time, but they really made it something that we all could resonate with and kind of go out and educate women on. And then personally, I had also worked with a lot of young women and men that grew up in substance abuse households. And so that was something that was more near and dear to my heart. And it was just a really good example of showing people that given circumstances in your life, it's kind of like you're the one that gets to decide your outcomes. And for me, I had lived that amazing journey as Miss USA and got to meet a lot of people and I hope leave some sort of impact on them.
And what are some things that people might find surprising about the experience of being Miss USA?
Yeah, so it's a job, right? So I think a lot of people forget. They're like, "Oh, you were Miss USA," but what does that entail? So you're hired, right? You're part of the Miss Universe organization brand. They moved you to New York City. So the next day they flew me from Las Vegas to New York. At the time, I had a job working in finance in Hartford, and so I literally didn't go back. They just put you on a plane and moved you into New York City, and that's your job, right? So you go to different amazing events like galas and New York Fashion Week, and of course compete at Miss Universe, which some people don't realize that's kind of the next step in line. But yeah, it's a job. It's like your full-time gig. You live there. You are the face and the spokesperson for their brand, and it's a 365-day, very intense job.
And do you live with the current Miss Universe in New York? I thought I read somewhere that.
Yeah, so it has since changed, but for my reign specifically, we were both living in Manhattan together. So when I first won, it was Olivia Culpo, who was actually the first Miss USA to win Miss Universe in quite some time. And then when I competed at Miss Universe, it was Miss Venezuela, who then came to move back in with me, which was amazing because obviously having a woman from the USA was just very comforting. She was from Rhode Island, so it was like, oh yes, like another sister. But then having somebody from Venezuela and getting to learn about her culture was really, really cool. So I'm happy that I kind of had split roles. Now, however, the Miss USA moves to Los Angeles and Miss Universe resides in New York City. So with the new ownership, they've kind of like separated that. So yeah, the Miss USA gets to live in LA and kind of live her year journey out there, which is very cool.
Yeah, that's fun. That's definitely a different experience from New York, but I'm sure just as fun. So were you surprised to win, or could you tell that you were performing well during the pageant?
I feel like I went in there very confident, just saying to myself, like, I have just as much of a chance to win as all of the other 50 contestants that I was competing with. And I know historically, like Connecticut at that point had never won. So you kind of go in there thinking, well, yeah, I have a chance. Like, I can certainly go there and give my all and my heart and just kind of hopefully represent Connecticut the best that I can. So I think as the 2 weeks progressed, I felt more and more confident because it's a marathon there. You're there for 2 full weeks and you're exhausted and you go through preliminaries and interviews. And so the night of, it's live. And so they call the top 15. At that point, you have no idea if you're making it into the top 15. And they called me 14th out of 15. So that was the most like anxiety I've ever felt. Just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if this is going to happen. But yeah, I think once I kept progressing forward and after the top 5 question, I felt very happy and pleased with my performance and just said, if it's not meant to be, it's totally fine. But if it does happen, like, I feel like I gave 150%. So
Yeah, I remember actually watching Miss USA that year and also watching while being on Twitter. And I remember everyone having such a great response to you on Twitter. I think a lot of people were expected and pleased to see you win. And then especially everyone from Connecticut. I just remember how excited everyone. We also both went to CCSU. So that was an exciting thing for the university as well.
It was. I remember like coming home and driving past the university and they had like this beautiful billboard up of just it felt so good to have like people that I've gone to school with or grown up with that kind of had that support when I got home. It was really, really, really touching.
What was your most memorable moment from competing at Miss Universe?
Honestly, for me, it was being in Russia. So I feel every year they pick a cool place to have it. And my year was Moscow, which I feel out of all of the years is probably one of the most unique. I feel like normally they go to somewhere tropical and beautiful, like the Philippines or Thailand. And so I don't think I personally would have ever traveled to Russia necessarily. So I think having that experience of being there for 3 weeks with 87 women from all over the world was kind of a really once in a lifetime opportunity for me. But yeah, I think just being able to see that culture and just be a part of that for 3 full weeks was probably like the most special and memorable time.
And have you noticed any changes since you've competed at Miss Universe? I know there's a new organization that's running it now. Or it seems to be pretty similar in terms of how they're running the pageant or
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there are a lot of similarities. I think they have really done a very good job of trying to make the pageant more and more relevant. I feel there's always questions about, well, why are pageants still relevant? What makes, you're up there in a bikini and an evening gown being judged, why do you think that this is still acceptable? And so I think they've done a very, very good job of kind of modernizing it and really showcasing like each individual woman, their educational backgrounds, what they do for a living, and just really make it more about the person and really like, why did they make the best representative to be Miss Universe or be Miss USA? So personally, I think they've done an amazing job with that. And I think it is very similar as far as the structure, but I think they're really trying to still be very relevant and make it, about that specific woman for that specific year. And I think that's what makes it so cool.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a great opportunity and I have respect for all of the women. It takes a lot to put yourself out there.
It does.
You're definitely giving, the winner a great opportunity to share about what you've been through in your life, connect with other people. So it definitely seems like something that's a great opportunity. So I'm not sure if you've heard about it, but there has been some complaints from the contestants of the Miss USA 2022 class. Some contestants feel that the pageant was rigged. Do you think that contestants should be more accepting of the process and be more supportive of the winner? Or do you think that there's ever favoritism?
I think it's very hard to have a favoritism. And I say that because what people don't see behind the scenes is there's a whole group of people that are there judging on a preliminary basis. That doesn't include just the evening gown and swimsuit. That's interviews. That's being with these women for the course of the time that they are in the location. And then you get a whole new set of judges that are now seeing these women brand new. So I think it's a very subjective process. And, I feel sorry for all of the contestants that, are going through that and feel that way. But I think just having gone through the process myself, and I know things have changed, but I just find it very, very hard to believe that like something that they go through so many loopholes and so many, like an auditor has to come and audit the process. So there's just so many strategic things that are happening where I find it very hard that they would be able to like say that it was favoritism. To me, I think especially the winner, Arbany was to me a clear standout. She was a wonderful performer. She had that it factor, and I know it's very hard when you're like behind the scenes to know what really happens, but having gone through it myself, I just feel like there's at least 5 women that you could leave that experience saying, you know what, any one of those women would have done an amazing job. It just happened that it was like her night. I know that kind of sounds funny, but it really does. Like it's just like it's meant to happen for one person. And I just think that exposure alone is so good for those women, right? Like you're on national television, you have the ability to really take your social media account or whatever that you want to kind of parlay into something amazing and great. So I don't know. I certainly have heard of everything, but I personally just feel like it's hard to really rig something like that.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you shared that, because for me, unfortunately, I did see a lot of hate towards Albany online after she won. And that definitely is tough to see. So
it is, especially because like you said before, you're putting yourself out there. It's very, very strenuous. You train for so long, and like, you put a lot of your life on hold to get ready for that experience, and to have, I don't want to, it just kind of taints the experience for that winner. And I think she's done a beautiful job. And clearly, I mean, she went on to win Miss Universe. So to me, that kind of just goes to show how determined and hardworking she was to pull that off.
And she was great at Miss Universe. I watched all the questions she answered.
Yeah, she's so articulate. She's a stoic, like to watch her speak and everything she says is it's just beautifully said.
Agreed. And did you experience any online bullying from contestants or any people during your reign as Miss USA?
I wouldn't say bullying per se. I think for me, this was 10 years ago. So I didn't have an Instagram account for my own personal self. I had just a Facebook. So I think having that instant overnight popularity and kind of like famous overnight was a lot, because you have your little followers, and then when you're being looked at under a microscope every day, a lot of people voice their opinions about how you look or your hair, just silly things. And I wouldn't say bullying. I just think for me personally, I had never been exposed to people voicing their opinions that I've never met before. So I was just kind of like, wait, you've never met me in your life. Like, how do you go about saying these things? And people get very, keyboard happy behind the scenes. So I think mine was very, very minimal in comparison. And I think it has a lot to do with just the explosion of social media over the past 10 years and how, that's such a huge, huge part of the girls' experience now.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that social media has had a huge impact on how everything is ran now.
Yeah.
So what do you think are some misconceptions that people have about pageants?
I think number one is just the type of person that the girls are. I think for me specifically, like I'm a finance person. I have an MBA in finance. And so I think it's very easy if people haven't met me before and know that about me to kind of assume certain things, right? Like you kind of assume like, oh God, pageant girl. But to me, like, I'm proud to say that was a part of my life. I won. I was a representative of Connecticut. And in addition to that, I do have smarts and I do have ambitions and goals. And so I think that's like the biggest misconception is a lot of these women have multiple degrees and have amazing jobs, careers, platforms. And I think it's just so awesome that now they're focusing on showcasing that live so people get more of that insight than just looking at a woman in like a beautiful dress or a swimsuit or something like that. I think they do a very good job of trying to show the world that there's so much more behind like the beauty that they're seeing on the screen.
Oh, definitely. And I'm sure you have to be very articulate to be able to answer those questions on stage.
Yes.
Something that I always watch, and I'm like, how do you do that?
Honestly,
How?
and you're so
Like
nervous,
your
right?
heart
Like,
must be like pounding.
yeah, and you're almost like blacking out because you
Yeah.
can't believe like it's live. You've just made it that far, and now you have to get up there and like hear what they're saying, process what they're saying, and then give an answer that sounds educated and not crazy. So it definitely is like very, very overwhelming, but I give a
So
lot of credit.
so how did you prepare for that? Do you just kind of practice answering a few questions and then
Exactly. They basically said to us beforehand, make sure that you're up to date with current events because
right.
they're going to ask you questions that are relevant to things that are going on right now. Secondly, they're usually a yes or no question, and then just state why you feel that way. So I feel a lot of the questions are purposefully very wordy. So it's so easy to get so caught up in like, what are they saying? What are they asking me? So to just kind of sit and process the question and then say, Erin, it's a yes or no and why. And then that's it. Then you just stop talking. It's easy to get caught up and run away with the question. So I think for me, it was just like knowing yes or no and why, and then be quiet.
Yeah. Wow. But then it's like once you're on stage, it's like almost a whole other aspect of dealing with the anxiety of, but then it must be exciting too, because you're like, wow, I made it this far. So
It
just try
is.
to focus
It
and
is. And I think too, like you have girls that usually are getting asked questions before you. So then if somebody trips up before you, you kind of get in your head like, oh no, like I hope that doesn't happen to me. I hope that that doesn't happen to me. Please just let me like successfully answer the question. So yeah, there's a lot of factors that come into play and play with your nerves for sure.
for sure. Well, I feel like you might have answered this before, but in your opinion with pageants, do you think there's only always one clear winner that sticks out, or with a different set of judges, could there be a different winner?
I definitely think with a different set of judges, there could be a different winner. I think it's very, like I said, it's very subjective, but I also think that it's just kind of meant to happen as it's supposed to happen, if that makes sense. So,
Mm,
you're going to get this set of judges and you're going to go and perform, like I say perform, but perform. You're going to go out and perform that night, but then the following night it may be completely different. And I think the fact that some women on prelims do amazing, and then the like live night, if they make it forward, maybe don't do so well, and vice versa. And again, that's two different set of judges. I definitely think you can like give yourself a good top 5 because they're all like super powerhouses and have such great energy. But again, I think there's so many other elements that are behind the scenes. So it's not always what, as a viewer, you're like, oh, well, this one did this and this one did that. But it's like there's so many additional components that go into judging that night. So what happens tonight would be different, I think, with a different set of judges.
right. Yeah. I think that, like you said, there is a lot that I think people don't really see that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, that
When we're
really,
seeing that top 15 or top 10 be called, there was a lot going on
right.
to get to that place. So how did you keep a strong mindset while competing, while going through all of that? Because it truly does seem like a lot more than what people realize.
Yeah. And I think the best advice when I was first getting started and going into like Miss Universe or Miss USA, somebody said to me, Erin, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I feel like I didn't really comprehend that until I was there. And it's just because you're there for so long and you're exhausted. And I just think I'm just strong-willed by nature. That's just who I am. So I'm very determined. I feel like I'm very strong-willed, and I try very, very hard at everything I do in my life. So I knew like I would make it. I would at least be able to survive the marathon, and then whatever happened as a result is kind of like left to the universe to decide. But I just think that's who I am, like at my core.
Yeah, because I mean, you're there for what, a week before for Miss Universe and for Miss USA. You were there for a week with all the contestants going through different
Yeah. So
things
actually,
and
for us at Miss USA, it was 2 weeks. And then at
okay.
Miss Universe, it was 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. So for those 3 weeks, you're meeting with different people, taking
Yeah.
on different responsibilities.
Right. They're taking you on like different I say different tours, but really trying to showcase, like with Las Vegas, they were taking us to different places in Vegas and showcasing those areas so that they'd film commercials. And so during the breaks at Miss USA, they would be showing like all these cool things that we did while we were here. And similarly, they did that in Russia as well. I think now they've condensed it down to like a week, maybe 10 days at Miss Universe. But I'm always like, man, we were there for 3 weeks. It was so long.
Yeah, I'm sure it flies by though once you're
It
once you're at
does.
the end of it.
It really does. Yeah, it does. I think the time change at Miss Universe is the hardest thing because your body's just kind of like freaking out, going, wait, where am I right now?
So do you have any other advice for someone who wants to compete in their first pageant?
I just think go for it. I think everybody is super hard on themselves and like, well, I don't know. I don't have like the pageant background. And it's like, go for it. You really don't know until you get into it and you kind of put yourself out there to see A, if you like it, B, if it's what you were expecting. You may love it, you may hate it. So I always say, put everything out there on the line and go for it. And like, you're like your own best spokeswoman. So I think now's the time. Like if you sit and question yourself, you're definitely going to make yourself doubtful. And like, there's no better time than right now. That's how I look at it.
That's a great way to put it. I agree. You definitely just have to go for things. I think a lot of us, sometimes we get stuck in our own thoughts or we worry, oh, what's someone else gonna think?
It's true. Like you always are saying, well, it's, I don't know. It's kind of like if Miss Connecticut had won, you're kind of thinking, oh, next year, like Connecticut won't win again. But it's like, but you don't know that. It may be a back-to-back. So, or any sort of a job, or like going out and doing something new. It's just like, you have to just try it because I think you live more life with regret than you do of saying, man, I'm so happy I went and actually did that. And especially women, I feel like we're always questioning ourselves and kind of second guessing, nah, I don't think it's the right time. I don't think it makes sense. But it's like, no, absolutely go for it.
I agree. And there's always something that you can learn from your failures. So
Yeah, absolutely.
did you ever go to Fashion Week? Because I feel like I always see Miss USA contestants or Miss USA. I've seen there a few times.
Yeah, we did. We got to go to New York City Fashion Week, both sides, so the fall and the spring, and it was so nice. It was just so cool. I mean, we got to sit front row to a lot of different shows, and it was amazing. Like, I had never seen that in real life before, obviously, and like to sit first, like front row, it's just, you feel so cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's really amazing. Yeah.
Did you walk in any of the shows?
I did. I walked for Sherry Hill, who was one of the dress designers.
Oh, I always see, I've never been to that show, but I've always seen it on social media. Oh, that show is so cool.
She does an amazing job. And she has, like, when we were doing it, she had one of the stars from the Duck Dynasty. What was her name? She was like a younger girl, like not Sophie. I can't think of it, but she had the Jenner girls like a while before me, before they became like what they are today. But it's cool. Wow. She always like showcases some, I say, like bigger model to like end her show, and the dresses are just amazing. So it's like, I feel like, yeah, every like pageant like evening gown woman is just flabbergasted by how cool it is, and the music and the lights. It's an amazing show.
And was your dress Sherry Hill?
It was, yeah. So she had like a whole lineup of gowns. And so myself and Olivia Culpo, who was Miss Universe, we both got to like walk in the show. It was so cool.
That's so cool. And how was it living with Olivia? She seems like such a interesting person. She has that show though, right? On TLC.
Yeah, she does. I know, it's amazing to see like how much she's progressed, obviously, in her career since I knew her. I mean, we were living together, it was 10 years ago now. So that was like before, any of this kind of, she was obviously a star, but not to the caliber that she is today. I would just say she's so determined, because even when we were living together, she was just so like gung-ho about, I'm going to be, like, I'm going to have this career. And it's just been so like amazing to see how much it's come to fruition. It's like, oh my God, it's crazy. Like at 30 years old, I'm like, I knew her when she was 19, it's so wild.
That is so wild.
I know. And now I'm like, yeah, they're like, oh, do you know Olivia Culpo? I'm like, I lived with her.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I know who I mean, granted, like 11 years has gone by. So, a lot has changed and people grow up and just life happens. But, yeah, I'm just really proud. And I think having her come back, they had her like host Miss Universe and stuff. I think it just really pays like such an homage to like, wow, look at how successful she has become. I think she's probably in the United States, one of the like the most successful Miss Universes ever, which is
Mm.
cool.
Well, I'm sure you know Chesley
Oh,
Chris.
yeah.
Yeah, he also ended up living in New York, right, and had a successful career with Extra.
Yeah. Yeah. That was cool. I mean, she was just such a
Mm,
bright light. That really hit me in a weird, I was in a weird funk for like days after that because you just
yeah.
sympathize and empathize. Like, you know what the stresses are of being like an older woman, like I say older, but in the pageant era, right? And just kind of going through
Mhm.
like online trolls, people that are just not nice. And I'm like, look at how like successful she is. And she's just a joy. People love her energy and her vivaciousness. And you just never know. I always say that's just another like unfortunate example of somebody that you just never know. They're so
Mhm.
great at showing the world like this much of their true life, and then really they're like suffering and struggling. Like that's so sad. So sad.
Yeah. Yeah, that was so sad. I remember when that happened last year.
Yeah. It was just, I think it was just so like, wait, no. Because when I first saw like
Mhm.
the first article, I almost thought it was like fake. I don't know. It came through. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah,
And
I
then
couldn't
it was,
believe it
oh,
either.
yeah, it was really, really tragic. But I think they've done such a nice job of like making mental health awareness a prevalent part of the pageant now. And like her mom was at Miss Universe to talk about it and talk about Chesley and all the great things that she did. And I'm like, that's so special that they have her still like involved, you know?
And did you feel like it was a positive, like, atmosphere while you were at the Miss USA pageant, like, all the girls getting along and not so much? Because it seems like this year, like, from what I saw on social media, that there seemed to be a lot of animosity between or competitiveness between, the women competing. And I
Yeah,
hadn't you haven't nobody's really seen that before in previous years, I feel like.
no, and I can agree with that. I think honestly, like a lot of girls still hang out like that have competed 10 years ago. We still like talk, and now people are like moms and have babies and get invited to their like personal lives. So we were so close. There was no cattiness. Like I was expecting it, to be honest. And then I left and I'm
Mhm.
like, no, it was so great. Like everybody was, because you think about it, like when are you ever going to be in a situation like that? So I'm like, why would you be here and make enemies? Like, I know it's a
Yeah.
competition, but at the end of the day, it's like, this is such a great experience for us. But yeah, I mean, I consider myself lucky that we didn't have any like crazy
Mhm.
cattiness. It was just, it was really fun. It was a great time. But I also think like social media has really like taken off. So I just think it adds a whole new dynamic, right? Wouldn't you agree? I mean,
Yeah, that definitely adds a whole nother layer. But I have to agree with you. I think that it's a great opportunity to meet new people. And then also, you never know where your next connection can come from. So it is good to network and make friends with people.
it is. And that's the thing, especially like as you leave the pageant, right? And then you see all these women that go and do different things. Or if you're vacationing in Iowa, like, you know, that, hey, I could like call up Miss Iowa and say, hey,
Right.
I'm in the area. Like, are you around? Or if people were coming to New York City at the time when I was living there, they'd be like, hey, Erin, like, we're in the city. Like, let's hang out. Let's grab coffee. So I don't know. I just think now it's just a great opportunity. And like, even for the women that don't win, you think about you could make a name for yourself doing anything. Now you've had this like national exposure. People know your name. I always watch like the followers. I'm like, okay, she started out with 20,000 and then like a minute
Yeah.
later, 25, a minute later, 32. It's like crazy how fast the following like escalates as soon as they're on the pageant. It's crazy.
So when you competed, a lot of contestants didn't really have Instagram, it sounds like. Because so I'm
Yeah.
trying to think when I started Instagram, I think like 2012, around the time that you won at 2012, 2013, my first year at Central. So
Yeah,
that's
it
when
was
you
2013. I had like the Miss USA Instagram account, which
okay.
which you transfer over. But I personally didn't have like my own at that point in time.
Right.
So now they give you, when you have your own, they give you the blue check. Like there's like a whole process, which is great because to me, I'm like, once you get the blue check, that's like, oh, that's so great. You know, so a lot of the girls, I want to say like 2014 and on, as soon as they win, they've gotten the blue check.
Oh, wow.
Which is, I'm like, I just want the blue check.
They should give it to you. I feel like, do you know that you can actually submit for verification?
Yeah. And I did like once upon a time. I'm just checking again. I did once upon a time, but no luck.
I think someone told me that if you submit articles of you being featured, like in the news, if you have articles like that, which I'm sure you're featured everywhere, that they give it to you because then I guess they want just like, if you're a public figure, then they can prove that that's your account.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I never like gave any substance behind it. So I'm sure they get a bunch of people that are like, hey.
No, they need to give it. Yeah. They need to give it to you. I'm like shocked. I'm shocked to hear that.
I know. But I also like, I would say I'm one of the more private, like former contestants in my like social media, like outlet. Like I post, but I'm not like as frequent maybe as a lot of the other women are. That's like a huge part of their lives. But I've always been like that. Like I kind of just teeter on the line of, hey, this is me, but like I still try to keep a little bit of privacy, you know?
It's nice to have privacy. Social media can be a lot.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure like I mean, obviously I was able to look at all of your amazing posts and I'm just like, just the level of detail and intricacy of like the different types of posts, the different reels, like linking things. It's like amazing the work that you do. It's really amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. I enjoy it. I think too that it can be like we said, just posting and keeping up with everything. I think there's like a balance that you kind of have of just like living life and then
but I feel like what you offer is like it's I don't know, it's relatable. It's like things that are fashion, like new fashion and things like that. Like to me, it's the cadence in which you post is very like relevant. It's not in your face. It's just like a perfect timeline. I feel like even that alone, like if you're going to post a couple times a week and when you're going to post, there's a science behind it.
Right. Oh yeah. There's a whole, like looking at your analytics and that. And did you ever like have any interest of wanting to do the influencer stuff, or was it just not your thing? Like you just enjoy more of like the private?
Yeah, I feel like if something came up like originally that was like unique where I felt like it wasn't, I don't know. I just nothing ever came up that I was like,
you want to jump really,
yeah, like I felt very connected to. Do you know what I mean?
I just like what you're saying.
Yeah, like I just was like, I had a lot of people approach me and ask, but I'm like, it wasn't really like for me at the time. So, yeah, I think there's so much that you can do. Like I'm not up with like TikTok. I feel like so old saying that, but I'm like, I can barely get through Instagram. Like I just feel I give so much credit to people that like can balance all of it. Cause like you would know, I mean, it's a lot. Say it has been like your favorite part over like your journey of like building your social media. Like what is your favorite part of it?
I think my favorite part, probably all the people that I've met, like going to Fashion Week, meeting everyone that I've met. I love meeting new people.
No, I would say, and you're so like personable. It's just so easy to talk to you. So I think,
thank you.
Yeah, honestly,
talk to you too.
Oh, thank you. I think that like, but really, I mean, people, to me, if you're like approachable and you're easy to speak to and like your content is amazing, it's just kind of like, it's just a no brainer to me. Cause there are a lot of people that are intimidating and maybe aren't as approachable and you're just kind of like, oh, so it's all of that combined is like, it's really great.
What are your long-term goals now living in a post-pageant world?
Yeah, so I think for me, I'm very career oriented. So I had gone back to school. I pursued an MBA in finance. So I'm a finance professional. I want to start a family and then just kind of continue with the creative side of my life, which is still like doing some modeling and hosting and things like that. It's kind of a nice collaboration for me of like a little bit of everything that I love. I'm kind of like a nerdy finance girl at heart. And then I also love this like fun beauty, fashion, foodie type of things as well. So I think being able to kind of incorporate all of that for me has just been the most enjoyable aspect of my life post pageant.
Really nice. Well, thank you so much, Erin, for coming on.
Absolutely. This was so nice. And thank you for reaching out. This has been so great. And I'm so proud of you and excited for your journey. I just think having females in Connecticut with any type of like amazing following and presence that you have is just inspiring. And I just keep going. And I'm so excited that I get to support you and be a part of it.
Thank you so much. And like I said, seeing you win all those years ago was definitely inspiring. Being from Connecticut and seeing someone achieve something so great, it definitely gives a lot of other women, the drive to succeed as well. So,
Oh, well, thank you. That means a lot.